This is Talk the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. Coming up today, we have an international roundup of the Reds away. It's got a bit of a twist. There's the latest on Portugal, on Brazil, on Curacao, as you'd expect. Manchester United's women had a night to remember and then a day to forget over the weekend. Charlotte Harper will be here a little bit later on in the show to talk about that. And who's feeling festive? We're going to look ahead to the Premier League fixture list for Manchester United as we head to Christmas and look at exactly where the club are standing at the moment and what they can target in the coming weeks as well. So I need to say hello to Carl and Andy. Laurie is away. He has sent us a video, which we'll come to a little bit later. But how are we doing, gentlemen? All right?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. How you doing?
Sorry, that wasn't a trick question.
It's Monday.
I was just waiting for Carl to answer. And he was probably waiting for me.
You've just been sat in silence, rocking back and forth anyway, Andy. You're missing football. You're not getting your fix at the moment, are you?
Nah. I enjoyed, because we were on the road, weren't we, doing the live shows last week. So I enjoyed getting back to my family, watching my daughter play, watching a couple of non-league games. I watched little bits of the international football. I was absolutely shocked to see the Republic of Ireland and Troy Parrott score a hat-trick. I wasn't watching the game, but I just found myself being pulled into the story because I'd also been quite critical of how predictable some of the World Cup groups are for the top ranking teams, just winning all of them. And then all the teams at the bottom of the group, at least in Europe, just losing all the games. So I think there's room for improvement there. But miss Manchester United, Ian. I feel that it's just really dragging the lack of games, and it's probably more pronounced now than it will be at any point in the season. We've still got another week until the next match, but it just seems like there's been a lot of international breaks, and combined with a lack of European and League Cup football, hardly any Manchester United games. So bring it on, let's get it going again.
Yeah, we've still got a week to wait as well. It's going to feel painful over the weekend, everyone getting back to action and United having to wait till Monday night. It's been an eventful break so far, Carl, for Manchester United's players. There's been a lot more talking points than perhaps the more recent international breaks, purely because there's a few more footballers featuring for their countries this time around. Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes are probably the two that stand out. Benjamin Sesko hasn't gone away. We haven't got an update on his situation ahead of that Everton game. It's good that there's a little bit longer to wait for him, though. It gives him more opportunity to try and see where he's up to with his knee injury. Ruben Amorim will probably update us, I think, later on in the week when he holds his press conference. But what stood out to you?
These international breaks have been getting stranger and stranger the lower the amount of players go on England duty. So I know there's quite a few fans listening to this that don't care for the international break, just want Manchester United to come back. But I'm a little bit like Andy in that once you stop watching the top European teams, the international break can be quite fun because you could get to see not just your players from Manchester United play in far-flung places that you wouldn't normally watch games of football, but also you get to pick up loads of other things. I think the World Cup qualifying, now it's a 48-team World Cup, has been really, really interesting. There's more qualification slots for the African nations. So my beloved Ghana have qualified, and I quite enjoyed watching a very chaotic game between Nigeria and DR Congo as well. So those are things I've been keeping tabs on. In terms of the questions, I mean, this is Manchester United we're talking about, so there's always something to ask about. There's always questions about whether or not certain nations qualifying is going to possibly affect Manchester United's movement in the transfer window, be the January one, the summer one. There's been conversation about some hires in the data team and what that can affect as well. And rest assured, we're going to start asking questions and figuring that stuff out there as well. Big thing for me, on top of everything else, is the Portugal national team. I think Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot and how they work under Roberto Martinez, and also how they work in orbit of Cristiano Ronaldo, has been quite interesting for me. Dalot didn't play in the second match they had against Armenia, but Bruno Fernandes had an exceptional performance, get a hat-trick in that game, and in a game that Ronaldo was suspended for. And then there's the horrible devil on my shoulder going, is this Portuguese team better when Ronaldo doesn't play?
Well, I think he'd scored the highest proportion, or been involved in the highest proportion of goals out of any of the European nations before that 9-1 win against Armenia, which was quite a way to respond to him not being in the team. It is Armenia, I suppose. It's a game they would expect to win. But yeah, Andy, for Bruno Fernandes' confidence, scoring a couple of penalties won't do him any harm, will it? I'm being devilish now.
Yeah, and I think relating this into Manchester United, it's perhaps a reason why he didn't go to Saudi Arabia, because if he stays playing in the Premier League, it's a much more competitive game. He isn't Cristiano Ronaldo. Portugal have got an incredibly strong team. I watched them in person in the Nations League. You could pick a second 11 from Portugal and they'd hold their own against most teams in the world. You see the quality throughout, which is incredible for a country of 10, 11 million people. But if he's firing, I won't mind him saving a few of his goals for Manchester United, because his output is down a little bit on last season, but I accept his role has changed. And Carl's point about the mid-ranking teams is really right. Almost all the top European teams, it's boring, it's predictable, it's pedestrian, it's become a process. Apart from Italy, who got hammered by Norway. Norway, where there's loads of Manchester United fans, reached the first and only second World Cup final since 1998. So congratulations to them. Some fella who lives in Manchester got some goals, but I forget what his name is. So there are storylines. I was listening a little bit to the Welsh game and Scotland, and they had a bit of interest. But you do have to go beyond the favourites, and then you're obviously watching how the Manchester United players are doing as well. But as Carl said, it's gone are the days when it was all these players going off to play for England. So it's really more varied now. You're watching players around the world.
I think Brazil are the ones to watch, Carl, aren't they, with Casemiro in the team? I mean, Carlo Ancelotti, again, speaking up his importance, following the 2-0 win over Senegal, saying he's the most important player in this team to carry out my instructions. He scores again. It's his first Brazil goal, I think, for a couple of years, but it's his third goal in his last 4 games. So, another player. They've got another game yet against Tunisia, which is in France, I think, on Tuesday evening. But again, a hugely positive sign to see him thriving for club and country again, because there is a genuine sense of momentum behind Casemiro at the moment.
Absolutely. You think about how he didn't go to the most recent Copa America because it was in the middle of his low period under Erik ten Hag, where he looked slower and heavier, and his sense of tackling was off, and it seemed as if he was going to be phased out of the national team picture. And he can speak a lot better about this subject than me, but the Brazil national team is one of those national teams you don't ever formally retire, you just gradually stop being selected. So Casemiro, even though he wasn't being picked up, there was always an opportunity for him to come back, and obviously he knows Carlo Ancelotti very, very well from their time at Real Madrid. So a Casemiro who is feeling back to his best, working under a manager like Carlo Ancelotti, who knows him very well and knows how to get the best out of him, can only be good for Manchester United when he eventually returns. There is sometimes, again, and he can speak to this a little bit more than me, the hesitation some managers have about players returning from South American international duty, in that the travel distance and the travel time and the amount of time you're spending on these plane, trains and automobiles mean the first Premier League game they have back can just be a little bit leggy. But hopefully, the fact that Manchester United are playing on a Monday rather than a Saturday early kickoff, for example, should hopefully mean any weariness in the legs isn't as bad. I'm expecting Casemiro to start against Everton. I'm expecting him to pick up where he left off and have a very, very good end of November and December.
Well, I'm sure he'll be fine on his trip from London and France, won't he? Because he's not gone to South America this time. So there won't be the same amount of travel in his legs, maybe for some of the others, but not for him.
Hooray for Monday Night Football, giving us more time for the players to get back. And I'm not a fan of the Monday Night Football. But Brazil, the national team is quite interesting because people love them around the world, but they only finished 5th in the South American group, 5th out of 10 for Brazil. Argentina won it by an absolute mile. And I got an early heads up about Carlo Ancelotti going to Brazil. So I was all over that story. And even before he'd been appointed, I was told that Casemiro would be brought back in as captain. So absolutely coming in from the coach. They've obviously got a well-established relationship, and the reasons I were told was there's a lot of really talented younger players there, but they need someone with his experience to bring them together. And Casemiro, my understanding was he was absolutely delighted to go there. The idea of him playing in the World Cup finals again is absolutely realistic now. It wasn't maybe a year ago. And the Brazil national team had some horrific results. Argentina absolutely battered them last year. That's one of the reasons why Carlo Ancelotti was brought in. And then you've got like Matheus Cunha playing for Brazil as well. Interesting that so many of the Brazilians play in Europe, that Brazil now play in Europe, but they're such an appeal, and always have been, to be fair, that they can play in London, they can play and sell out stadiums. You've got people who love Brazil, and then you've got the Brazilian diaspora who are all around the world. There's loads of Brazilians in Ireland. I've only sort of found this out the last couple of years, but Ireland have got their own national team who are flying now, the Republic of Ireland, and Northern Ireland were pretty unlucky as well. They were sort of had an interest, but had a couple of poor results late on.
You mentioned Cunha in there. The other thing about Monday Night Football, it gives him the opportunity to compete in a very bizarre game of celebrity bingo, because Matheus Cunha is turning on the Ultragum Christmas lights on Saturday, with Manchester United not playing until Monday, with Chesney from Coronation Street, which feels like a very 90s throwback, Andy, doesn't it? I
saw that. Someone sent it to me out of the... I think it was throughout the Sale and Altrincham Messenger, right? And what intrigued me is, how has this come about? Where's the contact here? Do you know what I mean? And it will probably be something like, somebody knows the partner of Cunha. It'll be like some mad connection. But a lot of the players live around that area. And I think it's good that Manchester United players can get involved in the local community and do stuff like this, but it is a pretty odd matchup. But why not? You know what I mean?
I wonder what they'll talk about.
Coronation Street named his dog Schmeichel because it was a Great Dane.
Yes, exactly.
Very good.
Maybe that's what they'll talk about, the Great Dane dog. Who's your favourite celebrity Christmas light switch on, Carl, that you've seen over time?
In 2009, I watched Nicolas Cage switch on the Christmas lights in the city of Bath, because he lived around there for a bit before he had to sell it due to tax reasons. So that was a fun Christmas light switching on. And then just various shenanigans in Winter Wonderland in London over the years. Yourself?
Andy, do you have a favourite? I don't know if I do have a favourite. I mean, I'm tempted to go along on Saturday just to see what the dynamic's like between Matheus and Chesney.
I can't ever recall going to see
Sam Ashton, to give him his proper name.
See a celebrity switch on any Christmas lights in my life. I would be astounded if Cunha suddenly came out and said he watches Coronation Street or Emmerdale or any of those British soap operas. But the world is a wonderful place. Now, I can't recall going to a celebrity switch on, if that's what they're called.
Surely you, Mr. Honorary Vice President Andy Mitten, has been invited to be the celebrity guest at a Christmas light switching on before.
I've not. I tell you what, though, what I did on Thursday night in Manchester? I got invited to do the keynote speech and present the award at the British Brownfield Regeneration Awards. It was a beautiful night in front of 500 people. And my brother's like, why on earth have they invited you? And there's a black tie doing everything in the middle of Manchester. Really, really good. And I had to talk about Manchester's regeneration for 10 minutes. And I wasn't nervous because I do that sort of stuff, but I was nervous because it wasn't a football crowd. There would be people there who, haven't got a clue who I am and wouldn't really be into football. But I think it's because I talk about Manchester as a city on this podcast. And I was also told, you're speaking at 9:30, and the crowd might have had a drink. So I know other people going, that crowd, there's all like the scrap metal dealers and all these sort of people, they can be a bit rowdy. But absolute silence for 10 minutes, mate. So it went well.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
They weren't falling asleep then. They were paying attention.
They did laugh. Your speech had jokes in it, right?
A couple, but yeah, they may have been asleep. I did actually make a mistake. I presented the awards as well. So and one of them, nice. I said, I used the word breast by mistake. I think I was supposed to say abreast, and everyone started laughing, and I just went, I probably better do this again, hadn't I? But yeah, I tell you what, it does show.
Good.
It shows how journalism and the media is changing. But some people getting on the stage and getting a reward for the best regeneration of a council tip in Tipton and going, I'm actually a Liverpool fan. Nice one, mate. Congratulations anyway.
Let's get back to some of the internationals because there's a few more bits to round up. I mean, Carl, you mentioned before about the crazy game between Nigeria and DR Congo. Well, the only reason that game was taking place between those sides is because DR Congo had already knocked out Bryan Mbeumo's Cameroon, so there'd be no Bryan at the World Cup finals, which seems like a huge blow for him. Obviously, that means Andre Onana misses out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Veteran listeners of the podcast may remember some older episodes where Andy and I are going back and forth about which World Cup qualifiers are harder, South America or Africa. The expanded format means there are more opportunities for African nations to go to the tournament, whereas the South American qualification still remains spicy, shall we say. Andy can pick his own adjective there. But it's fascinating now looking at African football since Infantino took over as FIFA president. We're seeing more money go to the African nations, more qualification spots, and more African nations and CAF member states investing more in academy football in their nations, in their centre of excellence, building their versions of St. George's Park. So it is a shame that Mbeumo isn't going to go to the World Cup. I think Cameroonian football, if they do it correctly and invest properly, could produce more football players that will play for Manchester United in the near future too. And I think that works for many, many nations we're seeing across these qualifiers. Again, if you're bored of international break, watch less European football, watch more of the African nations, watch more of the South American nations. I promise you're going to find something in there that's going to be absolutely quality.
Yeah, I mean, fly across the Atlantic and watch the CONCACAF playoffs for the World Cup final qualifications, because Laurie Whittle's done exactly that and he's sent us this report.
Hi guys, sorry I can't be with you on the podcast today. I am many thousands of miles away in Kingston, Jamaica. Why, you might justifiably ask? Well, Steve McClaren is head coach of Jamaica. It's the role that he left Manchester United to take, and he is very close to fulfilling his ambition, the reason why he took the job really, and guiding Jamaica to the World Cup finals in USA next year. They have a winner-takes-all match against Curacao at the National Stadium in Kingston on Tuesday night. Basically, Curacao lead the group, and they would be a fabulous story in themselves if they made it there, because they'd be the smallest nation ever to qualify for the World Cup finals. Now, if they draw or win, they go through. If Jamaica win, then I think it's going to be bedlam, pandemonium on the streets, because they will be there, and there is a lot of anticipation around the game. Usain Bolt's going to be there, and it comes amid the backdrop of the hurricane which caused such devastation on the west of the island. It's actually pretty peaceful on the east of the island, but I was speaking to somebody earlier whose family are over on the west of the island, and yeah, it's pretty devastating what's happened there, and he's very grateful to all the donations that have been made. He's going to go over there later today to try and help get food and restore some sense of normality, but he feels that if they can do this and qualify for the World Cup finals, then that will give everyone on the island a huge lift, and yeah, so that's what is ahead for Steve McClaren, and it'll be fascinating to see if he can actually achieve it. Curacao, on the other hand, yeah, as I say, world's smallest nation. Andy, I've got a question for you. What is the population of Curacao? Slightly smaller than Iceland, if that gives you any clue, who currently hold the record for the smallest nation at a World Cup finals. I've got another question for you, Andy. What is the capacity of the National Stadium at Independence Park? We'll find out. It's going to be packed to the rafters on Tuesday night. I'll give you a full report when I get back. Yeah, sorry to miss this one. I'm currently eating a bit of goat burger. So yeah, I'm currently enjoying the local delicacies. I'm going to have some jerk chicken later, obviously with a side of chips. But yeah, hope you guys are well. Can't wait to see you again. See you in a bit. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Laurie, for sending that through. So we have to start with the questions first, Andy. Population of Curacao set to become potentially the smallest nation ever to qualify for the World Cup finals. He gave you a clue with Iceland. I know you'll know the population of there. So what do you reckon?
I did, before he asked the question, I did Google it, so I'm cheating. It's 150,000. But the stadium one, Man United have actually played in that stadium. So I was going to say 30,000. For that one. United played a friendly game there after winning the FA Cup in 1985. I'm envious of Laurie on this trip. Right. I'd love to be in Jamaica with him, but good on him.
35,000 it was. That was the answer that Laurie sent through. He also sent through 185,000 for Curacao, but I'm not going to fight you or him about what the actual population is. It's in that region. It's very small. It's startling. But a lovely story, actually, with Steve McClaren, especially considering what happened with him, Carl, with England and Euro 2008 and, you know, the spectacular failure of not reaching that tournament. This would be a full circle moment for him, really.
Absolutely. Taking Jamaica to their first World Cup since, I want to say, 1998.
They definitely were at the 98 World Cup. Yeah, I can't remember them qualifying since. They were great at the 98 World Cup. I actually went across to Paris with my dad to try and get into the Argentina-Jamaica game. But we didn't manage to get a ticket. We ended up in a stadium nearby watching it on a big screen. So I think it was a 5-0 win maybe for Argentina.
I have memories of their 3-1, I want to say 3-1 defeat to Croatia, Robbie Earle scoring the goal there. So a wonderful sporting nation, a football team that has been steadily improving in recent years. Their performances in the Gold Cup have been getting better and better and better, I feel. And Steve McClaren has got a group there, a group that has been bolstered by 2 or 3 football players changing their national team allegiances, thanks to some of the rule changes that have been helped put through by the Algerian and the Moroccan FAs in the last 10, 15 years. So there are players like Leon Bailey, Mikel Antonio who's injured at this point in time, but players that are dual heritage are now opting to play for Jamaica over, say, England or Germany now, for example, are now helping bolster the Jamaican national team. And this is a team that, if they do make it to this tournament, it'll be a huge moment, especially, yes, given the wider backdrop of what's going on in Jamaica and the entire region. The devastation of Hurricane Melissa, I believe it was four people have died in Jamaica, 20 due to drowning in Haiti as well. And you look at certain regions in the west of Jamaica, just utterly devastated. So look, football can't completely fix the damage that's been done by this natural disaster, but it can give people something positive to focus their minds on. And it's hoping they get a good result.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be an interesting story either way, won't it, with Laurie over there to cover it. I mean, 98, I'm told by producer Ollie, is Jamaica's only World Cup finals appearance. So you imagine it would give the island a huge lift if they were able to qualify. But it'd give McClaren a lift as well, Andy, wouldn't it? I mean, he's had a meandering career the last few years. Obviously, that involved being an assistant at Manchester United for a while. But this would be quite a feather in his cap if he could get Jamaica to their second ever finals.
That would be a wonderful story. And they played Trinidad and Tobago on Friday. They're managed by Dwight York with Neil Wood from Stretford, who's the assistant manager there. So there's so many different plot lines. In terms of pieces of ideas I've had and never had commissioned, about 11 years ago, I was in the Caribbean and I met a load of them Jamaica players from 98 and they told me about the 98 World Cup finals and I just thought this is a brilliant magazine feature, but I couldn't get it commissioned and these lads were telling me stories. I was like, wow. And do you remember the team about the Jamaican bobsleigh team? I'm not saying it was that strong, but it was good. So they're in a group with Bermuda at the bottom of it, so it's Curacao and Jamaica. I used to live around there, you know. Did I ever tell you that? I used to live in the Bahamas.
Yes, you did. I remember you telling me this a couple of years back.
Yeah, true. So I've got, my dad got a job there. We were allowed to fly back from Manchester once a year. My dad was like probably the best footballer on the island because he was like semi-pro in Manchester. And we went there and my first formative memories of being there from the age of 4 to 6 and you'd have like the visiting teams coming over from the United States, the New York Cosmos, with all their top players playing against Dad's team. And like Dad became like a little bit of a celebrity because he was going to be like the captain against this team with all these amazing Brazilians. And I think they got beat 13-0. But I unearthed the pictures last year. And top part of the world. So interesting. So hopefully Laurie gets the story that he wants and be good for Steve McClaren as well. These are where the stories are. It's these, you know, Zidane Iqbal's going to play for Iraq, who could come through if they beat UAE. We've seen Cape Verde, and The Athletic have been covering a lot of these stories as well. These are where the really interesting stories are.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. I've just double checked. Leon Bailey is not a dual national. He was born in Jamaica. So
he is as Jamaican as they come, born in Kingston. I mean, I've spoken to him a few times in interviews. I can confirm that there is no dual nationality going on. He is very, very, very Jamaican.
My mistake there.
One of the interviews, it's all right. One of the interviews he was telling me about a party, these parties that he would attend in the summer, that Raheem Sterling would go over for, and Usain Bolt as well. And it sounded very Jamaican, to be fair. So good luck to them. Let's hope Laurie's got a good tale or two to tell us on Thursday's podcast. We look forward to that.
You can have a big chat with Usain Bolt about his shared love of Manchester United, because obviously Mr. Bolt's here all the time.
Okay, well, while the men have been away on international duty for United, the women have had a huge week facing PSG and the Manchester derby. Mixed fortunes, to say the least. And we've got Charlotte Harper on now to talk about it. Hello, Charlotte. So you're actually the women's sports reporter now for The Athletic. You're not just covering Manchester United and women's football anymore, but it was a big enough week to even get you involved, wasn't it?
Yeah, a new role that I'm taking on at The Athletic, which is why I'm writing less about Manchester United. So the biggest stories in women's sport globally. So just quite a large remit. So I'm adapting to that. But that is why I'm writing less about Manchester United, unless there is a big story which the desk feel, you need to get your teeth in, such as Mary Earps' return, which is, I'm sure we'll get into, but brilliant performance from the team against PSG, with an extra added spice of a former player coming back to Old Trafford.
How good was that result, and how good was the performance on the night from Mark Skinner's side?
A really, really good result. Massive credit to the players. You look at PSG as a name and you think, that is going to be a meaty tie. Wind back to when United were knocked out in the qualifying rounds by PSG, shows the progress that they have made. Big performances from Melvin Mallard, Simia Wujo. Oh, what a talent she will be. So raw, the way she carries the ball. Saf Middleton-Patel coming in, who has only played a League Cup fixture against Newcastle last December. So
wow.
Big result. 3 out of 3 wins in the Champions League, 9 points. We have these expectations of Manchester United, and you have to say big tick. And credit where credit is due.
Yeah, Andy, you weren't missing out on a European night at Old Trafford, were you?
No, I wasn't, but the train was badly delayed from coming up from London. And then I got a message from Charlotte, and she was asking me what the vibe's like, what the atmosphere's like. And I thought, better get my head together here. So I got in, and then I started giving Charlotte feedback on the atmosphere. And then I looked across in the press box and I saw Charlotte. I'm like, what on earth is going on here? And I think she thought I was on the other part of Old Trafford. And obviously the reaction to Mary Earps was pretty mixed. There was some boos, there was some cheers. The goals were brilliant. All 3 of them. PSG's goal was superb as well. Nearly 15,000 there. I feel sort of slightly conflicted on this, because it is a good crowd. I think it could have been higher. The weather was horrendous. 8 p.m. kickoff is late for, I know some people who wanted to take the kids, who were like, one of them's 9 and one's 8, and they didn't because it was too late a kickoff. I don't know what your view is Charlotte. But I left Old Trafford thinking that was really good, and then I missed the bus home. So it's sort of mixed night all along. Late train, missed buses, there you go.
So I was, as a journalist, I want to make sure my, what's the word of decibel measurage? That's not how you describe it. Was, accurate in terms of the cheers and boos for Mary Earps, because in the press box, it's quite difficult to really ascertain that. So, I thought Andy would be, among the ultras, the hardcore, in the thick of it. So I was like, what's the sound like, Andy? Only for him to be right behind me.
drinking coffee and eating cheese if his usual press box flavour is anything to go by. Can we talk about the goalkeeper, if possible, please, Charlotte? Because obviously goalkeepers were the focus of the night with Mary Earps' return, and Fallon Tullis-Joyce has done so well for the Manchester United's women's side since Earps left, but a fractured eye socket meant that she missed the game. And it provided this opportunity for Saf Middleton-Patel. And like you say, she'd only played in the League Cup before. She'd never played in Europe before. It was only her second ever Manchester United women's appearance. And obviously an Old Trafford debut and against PSG. But she just seemed to come out of it fantastically well.
Yeah, we broke this story on The Athletic last night about Tullis-Joyce's injury, fracturing her eye socket. And awful. I'm really wishing her a speedy recovery, not a nice one at all. And we'll come on to this, but Tullis-Joyce has been immense for Manchester United. So consistent, a real presence at the back, a phenomenal human as well. And, you know, is a real galvanizer of that squad, very intelligent. And this is a massive blow for United. Like, it will take a couple of weeks, I'm told, to recover from such an injury. And so for Middleton-Patel to come in that high-pressure game at Old Trafford, big occasion, only her second game for United's first team, she did really well. The way she coped with the occasion. So credit to her. But this shows, you know, the lack of depth at United, the fact that she hasn't been given more opportunity to rotate throughout the season. And just the difference in levels, which we will come on to on the derby, in the fact that Middleton-Patel hasn't had that experience. And you have your starting goalkeeper, brilliant. If she gets injured, you have a backup goalkeeper, and the level understandably drops in terms of distribution as well. So credit to Middleton-Patel for that evening. But as we'll come on to the derby, not that the goals, were Middleton-Patel's fault at all, but it just shows Man United's cracks are starting to appear.
Yeah, it's been a demanding period for Mark Skinner's side, no question about that. Just before we talk about the derby defeat, obviously this was a hugely significant night, the 2-1 win against PSG on Wednesday. So United are now, the third team with a 100% record still in the Women's Champions League, along with Lyon and Barcelona, so it's not bad company to be keeping. Andy, you mentioned the attendance earlier. I don't know if you spelled it out, but 14,667, which is actually a record for a Champions League group phase or league phase game in women's football in England. So it's a significant crowd, but again, the women's side playing at Old Trafford, you get the sense that it could have been an even bigger occasion. Perhaps it is the kickoff time, like you say, that was the thing that held it back. If it had been played, obviously they're not played at the weekend in this competition, but the late kickoff would have prevented some people from attending, surely.
Yeah, and that horrendous weather as well. Look, it's a good crowd. It's more than the capacity of Lee Sports Village. The atmosphere was good. The banter was good. I just wouldn't have minded seeing another 10,000 people there. And I put the crowd onto social media and I had people going, there should be more there. And I'm like, well, why aren't you there? So fair play to the people who did go. I also think the club deserve credit for the price of the tickets. It was £9 for adults and £5 for children, rising up to £15. I think that's absolutely a fair price. And had the derby defeat not happened, I would be waxing lyrical about the smart recruitment and Manchester United women's team punching well above the weight. But I watched the first half of the derby on Saturday and then I switched it off in a very juvenile sulk.
Yeah.
Wait. Before we get onto the derby, can we talk about Jess Park in the build-up to the second goal?
She's absolutely brilliant.
Please, Jess Park's movement for United's second goal is sumptuous. She absolutely glides with the ball. Loads of chat when the deal was done about how she was going to work with Ella Toone, and we're all just pie on our faces because just a fantastic dovetailing in from wide areas, cutting inside. I really like the fact that as she's moving with the ball, the second take on she's got doesn't really feel necessary, but she just sort of moves towards the defender like, I'm going to suck you in now just to make this really, really embarrassing before I flick the ball out wide. When Jess Park is on it, it's brilliant, and I think she is going to end up being a United Women, not just cult hero, but the longer she stays, she's going to be quality. So we can talk about the derby in a little bit, but if you've not seen it, United's second goal against PSG, just watch Jess Park move.
And just adding on Park, like, she just wants to play. You know, that's why she moved from City. Guaranteed game time. She's given that freedom within a structure, and plays with a smile on her face. I've got a piece out coming. Her agent is a rugby league player. So I watched the derby with him.
Really?
Yeah, a fascinating story. So check that. Well, look out for it on The Athletic, because it's in the works. But a really interesting story of how he mentors her as well as an athlete. And Park has been a catalyst for Manchester United this season, working really well with Miyazawa and Zijoti Olme.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do have to talk about the Manchester derby because it did bring the team back down to earth with a bump, really. And it's interesting, Charlotte, that you mentioned before about the strength in depth, because it was almost the first part of the conversation after the first half in the derby. Manchester United 3-0 down at the Etihad Stadium after the first 45 minutes. There were changes from PSG, 4 in total. And in fairness, the players coming in, and they're not like their reserve players by any stretch. Ella Toon came back in. Elizabeth Turland, who started the season fantastically well, came back in. Dominique Janssen, who was suspended for the PSG game. Leah Galton's maybe the one that's, you know, a slight backup if we're going to sort of bracket these players. So, you know, it's still a strong Manchester United side, but do you think it was the fatigue of the week and, you know, the whole package really that caught up with them in the Etihad 45 minutes?
I want to come on to the fatigue and playing in Champions League. That is, you know, fixture congestion. These are tired players, but I don't think that's an excuse for the derby. You know, first goal was a corner and, you know, defended that poorly. United weren't first to the second
Charlotte.
balls.
You're amongst friends, it's fine.
Yeah.
Love it, Charlotte.
United weren't
Love it.
you do have an affinity. United weren't first to that second ball. Second one, they didn't defend the cross well. Third one, Zijoti Olme has to close down Lauren Hemp quicker. You can't give a player of that calibre so much time on the ball. And so, you know, those City are clinical. They've got Hemp, they've got Shaw, and then Miedema as their front line. That is a ferocious front line. And so those errors, you know, are fixable. But there have been warning signs given the fact that you are playing midweek and at the weekend. You know, Mark Skinner said, played PSG on the Wednesday, day off on the Thursday. All they could do was walk through training as a tactical setup, because
they're not used to that either, are they? That's the difference. There's a lot of teams who do have weeks like that regularly. It's not been the norm for Skinner's side at all.
Exactly, and this is why you need to start 18 months ago, 2 years. If your ambition is playing in the Champions League, that's where your succession plan is. That's where your recruitment is. In the summer transfer window, they brought in players. I think it was only 3, if I remember rightly. Zijoti, Park and Rolfo. If they hadn't got Park, they would have been really struggling. And the only reason that they were able to sell Clinton was if Park was involved in the deal. If she wasn't involved in the deal, United weren't interested. And so, you know, the bench is lacking. The difference between the starting 11 and those coming on is lacking, and it's hard. It's really hard with those quick turnovers, the intensity of their games. City had it last year when United played them, when City were in the Champions League. So United are in this kind of yo-yo place where they do really well in the league, qualify for the Champions League, and then their league position is actually now suffering because of their competitiveness in the Champions League. Don't get me wrong, 3 out of 3 wins in the Champions League, 9 points, brilliant. But you've got Wolfsburg, Lyon and Juventus coming up. They're going to be tough. And the fact that if you said to me, we'll take 2 wins against Aston Villa, PSG and City, you think, 6 points out of 9, that'll be really good. The 1-0 defeat to Aston Villa is the blow. I know tragically their former kitman John Humble died recently, which was awful, and they actually had training on the Friday morning at 7 a.m. so that they could attend the funeral on the Friday to then play Aston Villa on the Saturday. So all these factors consider. Summing up, fatigue is not necessarily the excuse, but it's definitely a reason that United are, they had a mountain to climb at half time, and they kept it 0-0, but it was no way back.
No, it could have got more embarrassing, couldn't it? Certainly with that being the scoreline at half-time. I mean, Carl, obviously, Charlotte mentioned there, there's Wolfsburg next for Manchester United in the Champions League in the week. Then it's the international break. So maybe a moment there to take stock and see where they're at with the demands of this season and the depth of the squad. Get people back fit. Fallon Tullis-Joyce, for example, could be back after that break, and then it all starts again in December. Yeah,
it's not going to get any easier from here. This is rotation. And how Mark Skinner uses his squad has been a long-standing issue for United. I mean, it often feels like Skinner is most comfortable when he has a squad of around 16 players, maybe 18, if that. And then the starting lineup, very often, very, very good enough to finish top 4 spots, perhaps even push on to the Champions League. But then when there is an injury, when someone perhaps is a little bit more fatigued. Skinner used the word freshness in his post-match interview and then talked about individual errors in some of the goals. He said his side probably could have been a bit more street smart when building out from the back, particularly that close to half-time. You shouldn't be trying to... And United, when they do build out from the back, can do it very, very quickly. They can go north-south very well, suck a team in, play around their press, or through their press, and bang, great. But against City, especially a City team that is probably going to be the team that runs Chelsea closest for the league, they just got caught cold, and bang, you get done for 2 goals there. So United's first team, up there with the best in the country, if not some of the best teams in Europe. United's team, when it is backup centre-backs or backup left-backs, that's when things start getting tricky, and it's on not only the squad to get better at coping with the midweek fixtures, but also I think Skinner needs to look at how he manages a squad, because if United want to be a team that is eventually going to be playing in the Champions League season on season on season, he needs to get better at managing the squad with more than 17 players and getting the most out of those 17, numbers 12 plus.
Charlotte, just to tee up the Wolfsburg game then on Wednesday, I mean, how difficult is this match for Manchester United in your opinion? They've won 2 out of 3 so far. The game that they lost was against Lyon, which we've already talked about, their strong start in the Champions League. So how difficult is this trip to Germany?
Really tough. If they got a point away, you would take that and run. Because, Wolfsburg are extremely experienced in the Champions League. It's not their first rodeo by any chance. They beat PSG 4-0. So, that's a measure of where this team are at. And United are coming off a 3-0 derby defeat. The thing is that you always hear about this team's togetherness and that winning mentality, and you see it, right? The women are so tight-knit. There's a really, really good group there, but that can only get you so far. And when you've gone 13 unbeaten games at the start of the season, you have put in a hell of a shift in that first 10K. You lose to Aston Villa, you pick yourselves up against PSG, lose to the derby. The season is still a marathon. And they started off so well. It was going to be inevitable of a suspension or an injury or the fatigue that, things are not always going to go their way. It's going to be tough, really tough.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast to talk about the women's side, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, brilliant to have Charlotte on, and very interesting moment again for Manchester United's women's side. Of course, the men are coming back to action this weekend for that Everton match, and this kicks off, Andy, now a run basically as far as you can see up to March, where it's just Manchester United in action. There's no international breaks. Obviously, the FA Cup will start in January, but this is a real opportunity now for the team to build on the progress that they've made in the last few weeks and just press on, isn't it?
It is, and we have the prospect of midweek Manchester United games in a not too distant future as well.
Well,
it feels West Ham, isn't it? And then the festive ones. Getting carried away because there's one game midweek.
If they count, absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
No one knows what day of the week it is anyway that time of year. So
true. There are more games. There is enough games to build up a momentum. It will feel like the season is properly going. We're not having these 2-week gaps anymore. That is a good thing. If you look at some of the fixtures, Everton have not had the best run, although Tottenham and Forest have not had good runs either. Crystal Palace away will be a tough one. Got Bournemouth coming to Old Trafford. They've done really well at Old Trafford. You've got West Ham, who've had a poor season, coming to Old Trafford. If this is a proper Man United team, you've got to be getting some points. The form at Old Trafford has been really good this season. That's been one of the plus points. But you need to see a continuation of the positives we've seen so far this season and not the negatives. Concede fewer goals. If 6th is a realistic aim for this season, Manchester United need to be winning and picking up points in most of these matches.
Yeah, looking at the games actually, Carl, I mean, obviously Everton's the first one. Palace away is always difficult, and obviously they, again, have looked strong against the better sides in the Premier League this season. West Ham, you wonder where they'll be up to with Nuno by then. Obviously Wolves have got a new manager in Rob Edwards as well. We always seem to play these teams when they've got the new manager and the ascendancy being built with that. And obviously Bournemouth and Villa are two sides who are around where Manchester United are in the table. And it's just so tight at the moment. And obviously this period now moving forward will be the point where things begin to properly establish themselves. Currently there's only 4 points between 3rd and 12th. Manchester United in the middle of that. They're only 2 behind Chelsea in 3rd. So there is an opportunity here to try and press on a little bit and be more in the top end of that conversation. And then you can begin to look in the new year towards, can Europe be a target? Can the Champions League be a target? That's where they need to get to, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think this run is going to be the run where the big question is, how good are Manchester United? Really,
we find out, yeah.
In italics and everything out there. The Premier League now is settling in. I'm a little bit annoyed that Manchester United didn't get to face Graham Potter's West Ham or Ange Postecoglou's Nottingham Forest or Victor Pereira's Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yeah.
Because I think that might be one of the reasons why the league table's congested, because quite a few teams picked up some points playing those 3 variants there, whereas United, unfortunately, got to do it the hard way. I've definitely use the word that Andy's used there, momentum. And I think it's really, really, really important to build as much momentum and as much positive results as you can before AFCON starts, because I've got a horrible feeling that's going to be like run into a clenched fist. And United might take 2 or 3 levels down. So get the results, figure out that starting lineup, get 2 or 3 of the working connections that will probably still be there when AFCON occurs. Get them bolted down. Let's have a real good conversation and a real good look at how that left-hand side is going to work. Who's going to be that left wing back? We've still got Lisandro Martinez to arrive somewhere between now and, let's say somewhere between now and Christmas. I'm not going to be more specific than that. And what effect will that have on the team? What effect could that have on Luke Shaw? What effect will that have possibly on Mateus Cunha? If we can get that left-hand side sorted, then perhaps losing Mbeumo and Ahmad during AFCON won't be as devastating there. So yeah, those are things I'm really, really looking forward to. I think there's 2 or 3 football players there as well now. The international breaks have gone, are probably looking at themselves and going, right, I've got to really kick on between either now in January or now in March, because I want to get back into that national team picture. Matthijs de Ligt did not feature in the Netherlands game on Friday. Joshua Zirkzee wasn't called up entirely. Wout Weghorst dropped out the Netherlands, and then it was Emmanuel Ikija. Please forgive me if I've got that pronunciation wrong. The gentleman who is part of the Blueco Sports project with Strasbourg and Chelsea. So Zirkzee is now 4th, maybe 5th choice in this national team picture. He's at this time not going to play for the Netherlands at the World Cup. So this run is going to be really big for him. I think this run might be big for Mainoo as well, because Tuchel's just been on record saying the number 1 midfield partnership now is Declan Rice and Elliot Anderson. the Anderson role used to be Mainoo's role at the Euros. So can these players push on and get themselves into that first team picture, or starting lineup picture, I should say, between now and December? Because by the time December runs around and AFCON runs around, there might be a chance for them to be in that starting lineup.
Brilliant. Well, we'll talk more about all of this on Thursday as we look ahead to that Everton fixture. But Carl, you've also been doing Ask Me Anything on the Reddit Red Devils channel. You had some weird and wonderful stuff. We've talked about this before, I'm pretty sure, but Tom Bombadil, I think is the way to pronounce his handle.
Tom Bombadil, the character from the Lord of the Rings books. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. There's me exposing the fact that I've never read a word of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Is it more than a trilogy? I don't know. Series. The name of Donald Duck in Swedish is Kalle Anka, which is basically your name. I just felt I needed you to know that. You did know that, didn't you?
I did know that, although I didn't know it until I was 21. So when I did my Andrew versus Andy style piece, I mentioned that two of the names that were on the table for me when I was born were George and Damon. So George was one of the names suggested by my dad. The number one choice was he wanted to make me a junior. And I went, nah, you can't be a junior. And then Mum vetoed George. And we'll call him Carl for all I care. As like a flippant comment. Mum goes, oh, Carl, that's a nice name. Little did my mother know that my dad, who had studied in Denmark for several years, discovered that Kalle Anka, or Kalle Anka, is what they call Donald Duck in Sweden. So that was his joke suggestion as to what to name me. Things are made slightly more confusing or funnier by the fact that on Christmas Day or during the Advent period, it's traditional to show loads of Donald Duck cartoons in Sweden. So Donald Duck is... Sweden's one of the very few regions where Donald Duck is more popular than Mickey Mouse. And now, quite often, because this is Manchester United and because this is a football club that has Swedish football players, that means Swedish journalists turn up, every now and again, especially when Victor Lindelof was around, a Swedish journalist will come up to me like, so is your name really Kalle Anka? I went, yes, my name is actually Donald Duck. It's... That snigger is the correct noise that many Swedish people make when they first hear me. So, look, when people email me and say, oh, Carl thinks he's a prankster or he thinks he's a joker, I understand. My parents took one look at me as an infant child and my dad went, I'm going to name you after a cartoon character.
Nice
That's
one,
a
Donald.
Donald Duck impression.
Right, we'll leave it there on Talk of the Devils. But if you took part in that Ask Me Anything, I hope you enjoyed it. I think Carl did.
Thank you for that. It was meant to only go on for 1 hour, but I think I ended up asking questions for 2.5.
Wow.
This is the thing about Manchester United. You say ask me anything about Manchester United and there is probably very little chaff to this club in that there is something that is interesting to every different kind of Manchester United fan. And there's loads of questions in there that, unfortunately, I couldn't get round to answering. And there's loads of questions in there where I'm like, good question. I need to go disappear and figure out an answer for you. So
maybe for the next one, we'll have a few more revelations about things that are not related to Donald Duck. But that's brilliant. So thank you for everyone for taking part in that. And Carl and Andy, thank you for being with us on Talk of the Devils as well. We'll be back on Thursday. Thank you for your company, listening and watching along. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too. And click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Kalle Anka and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels at TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.